Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I've been prepping armies for A Song of Ice and Fire for a good while now, and I'm finally ready to start getting some battle reports on the channel. I thought I'd start with a video showing the basics of gameplay so it's easier for everyone to follow. It's a really solid game overall that I'd recommend everyone try at least once, and based on my experience, it's a great game for people who have never played miniature games to dip their feet into. Following some explanation of the basic game functions, I'll be showing a short battle report between the host of House Baratheon and Jorah Mormont's Night's Watch. A Song of Ice and Fire has very accessible rules that you can find on the official game's website under the Documents tab. There is also a companion app called War Council that contains most of the up-to-date rules, units cards, and tactics cards, as well as an army building function, so I'd recommend if you're interested in the game giving that a download. A Song of Ice and Fire is played over a number of game rounds. Each round is broken up into two parts, the activation phase and the cleanup phase. During the activation phase, players take turns activating units in their army. Whoever has priority activates the first unit, then their opponent activates one of theirs. It's important to note that A Song of Ice and Fire is a very much timing-focused game, meaning there is a focus on abilities functioning at certain points during the activation phase. These abilities or cards will always clearly state the time in which you can perform their function. Once all units have been activated on each side, the round enters the cleanup phase, where players resolve any effects that trigger at the end of a round, refill their tactics card hand, score victory points, and prep the board for the next round. For the following demonstrations, refer back to this example of a combat unit card for location of unit stats and abilities. One important mechanic to note is the unit's weapon. You'll notice there is a green, yellow, and red value. These numbers determine the number of attacks the unit can make with that weapon. At full strength, the unit starts at the green value. When it loses a rank, it uses the yellow value, and when it's reduced to a single rank, it uses the red value. When a combat unit activates, it performs a single action. Actions include maneuver, march, retreat, attack, or charge. It's possible for units to gain additional free actions from various sources. Maneuver actions consist of the following: up to a 360-degree pivot, moving the unit up to its movement value, and another optional 360-degree pivot. March actions allow a unit to move twice its normal movement value, followed by a 360-degree pivot after the move is completed. Retreat actions can be performed when a unit is engaged to an enemy unit, and it's important to note that a unit cannot perform a maneuver, march, or charge action while engaged. To perform a retreat, first roll a d6. Add the value of the d6 to the unit's speed stat. This is the maximum distance you can retreat from the combat. Once this move is completed, you may perform a 360-degree pivot. When performing an attack action, you may first change your movement tray facing if so desired, and you may shift your tray to 50% alignment on either side of the enemy tray. This allows you to perform attacks against a different target if multiple are present. Then you can perform a melee attack against the engaged enemy unit, using your melee weapon statistic and applying any ability modifiers to the roll. Shooting attacks are very similar to melee attacks, but have a few additional rules that affect the action, such as line of sight and range. Line of sight is determined by the front facing of a unit's tray, and the target unit's facing determines whether you can hit their front, flank, or rear. In general, attacks made to a unit's flank or rear potentially cause additional damage to the unit. If you cannot draw a line of sight from the front facing of your unit's tray, you cannot target the enemy for whatever action you tend to use. Charge actions can be performed if the following requirements are met: the target is in your line of sight, the target is within the maximum distance you can move, and there is enough room for at least 50% of the charging unit's tray to make contact with the enemy. If these requirements are met, you may pivot the charging unit as long as the enemy remains within line of sight, then roll a d6. Add the result to the unit's speed statistic. This is the max distance the charging unit may move towards the target. Move the unit the full distance towards the target. If you contact the enemy unit, you may then resolve an attack action. Successfully charging an enemy allows the charging unit to reroll any attack dice that fail to hit. However, if the charge roll was a 1, the charge counts as disorder, even if you still make contact. You may not reroll any failed hits, and you may not play tactics card for the remainder of the activation turn. If you fail to make contact with the enemy unit, the charge has failed, and the charging unit must perform a panic test. Panic tests are very common tests performed throughout the game. After every attack, providing damage was dealt, a defending unit must take a panic test. Failing charges also leads to a panic test. Roll 2d6 and a d3. If the result of the 2d6 equals or exceeds the unit's morale statistic, the test is passed. If the result is lower, the unit suffers a number of automatic wounds equal to the result of the d3. Morale tests are more uncommon, usually required for an effect to apply to that unit. They function in the same way as a panic test, however there is no threat of losing models from failing the test, so no d3 is rolled. If you fail, you simply don't get whatever effect you were making the morale test for in most cases. Another important game mechanic are condition tokens. These are single-use effects that are used against combat units. Panic tokens force the defender to reroll any or all of the dice used in a panic test, including the d3. Weaken tokens force the attacker to reroll their successful hits as they attack. Vulnerable tokens force the defender to reroll any successful saving throws they make. A unit can only ever have one of each token type at a time, and when a token is chosen to be used, it's discarded afterwards. I think with that we can get into the battle itself. Hopefully this brief rules overview will help those of you without experience with the Song of Ice and Fire follow along with the game a bit better. But please remember this was a shallow look into the game, and while not overly complicated, there are many more rules and interactions I didn't cover. I will offer explanation of certain aspects of the game I did not cover previously when they pop up during the battle. Hope you enjoy. As first player, I have the first activation of the game, and I choose to activate an NCU and claim the Missive Tactics Zone with Melisandre. This zone allows me to draw 2 additional tactics cards and apply a condition token of my choice to an enemy unit. A quick note on the Tactics Zone. While building a force, you may include non-combat characters or NCUs in your army. These characters may be used to claim zones on the tactics board and may be chosen to activate instead of a combat unit. Tactics zones provide powerful support to the combat units fighting it out on the battlefield, and captures the all-important political scheming to the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. Each NCU has abilities of their own as well, ranging in different levels of potency based on their cost. Melisandre is quite a powerhouse of an NCU. Her ability has a cost, however. After claiming a zone with her, I may choose one of my combat units for Melisandre to influence. When influenced, that unit suffers 2 automatic wounds and must take a panic test. I may then target an enemy unit, and they suffer a panic test with a -2 modifier to their morale stat, and if they fail, they suffer an additional 2 automatic wounds. My army is structured around a risk-reward playstyle, and the unit I choose to suffer the test and wounds is one of my R'hllor faithful, who have a very high morale. I pass the test easily, and gain a special token for doing so. I'll elaborate on these tokens later. I then target a unit of Builder Crossbowmen, since they have the lowest morale of the enemy army. They fail their panic test, suffering 3 automatic wounds from the D3 and Melisandre's ability. At the start of my opponent's turn, I play Test of Faith, targeting another R'hllor faithful unit. They perform a panic test, passing and getting +1 to their defense for the first attack resolved against them. The faithful gain tokens whenever they pass morale or panic tests. These tokens can be used in a variety of powerful effects. They have a base morale of 4+, and with the Stag Knight Noble I have attached to the unit, the stat is a 3+. After resolving the card effects, my opponent continues with their turn, activating an NCU and claiming the Horse Zone. This zone allows a single unit to perform a free maneuver action. Varys, the NCU activated, has no effects that trigger off of them claiming zones, but instead may spend a token whenever one of my NCUs claim a zone, to gain a similar effect of the zone claimed. He can do this 4 times per game. Anyways, the Horse Zone is used to allow the Builder Crossbows to make a free maneuver. Next, I activate Tycho Nestoris. His once per game ability heals 5 wounds between any number of friendly combat units. Obviously I'm not going to use that yet, so I claim the Crown Zone. This zone forces a panic test with a -1 modifier to a morale stat on an enemy unit. My opponent passes this test and no damage is dealt. Next we both begin advancing our units one by one. Since none are in range to charge or fight, it's a pretty fast process, but important to set up the ensuing turns of combat. You may notice my unit of cavalry move an additional time. Cavalry units may perform a free maneuver action at the start of their activation, so in this case my champions of the stag perform 2 maneuvers during their activation. Turn 1 ends with my opponent activating her second NCU, Amon, who is a healing powerhouse. She claims the coin zone. This zone restores up to 3 wounds to 1 friendly combat unit and removes a single condition token from them as well. The builder crossbowmen are fully restored from the zone's effects. Turn 2 opens with the Night's Watch activating an NCU and claiming the Missive Zone, drawing 2 tactics cards and placing a Weaken token on the Queen's Men. I respond by taking the Horse Zone with Tycho, performing a free maneuver with a unit of R'hllor Faithful. Jor Mormont's unit of Sworn Brothers perform a successful charge against the flank of the R'hllor Faithful. The ensuing combat sees 5 of the Faithful fall to Greatsword swings, and I somehow managed to roll Snake Eyes in my panic test, but a handy tactic card allows me to auto-pass the test instead due to the targeted unit being a R'hllor unit. Passing my panic test and losing a rank of Faithful deals 2 auto wounds back to the Sworn Brothers due to the attached Stag Knight Noble. After resolving the combat, I play Baratheon Conviction, which triggers off of passing a panic test, allowing me to restore 2 wounds. My Faithful counterattack the Sworn Brothers, only dealing 2 wounds. The Sworn Brothers manage to pass their panic test even though I use a panic token to force my opponent to re-roll her test. She then plays Live and Die at my posts, which triggers off a successful morale test. Panic tests count as morale tests. The card applies a vulnerable token to my Faithful, and for the rest of the game makes this unit immune to being destroyed due to panic tests. My opponent activates Amon next, claiming the swords. She targets the Sworn Brothers, allowing them to perform a free attack action. When Amon claims a zone, a single unit may restore 1 wound, plus 1 additional wound for each destroyed rank. 3 wounds are restored total, 2 from Amon's ability, and 1 from Jor Mormont's ability, Dauntless, which we forgot about earlier. It heals a wound to the unit when they pass a morale test. Before the free attack can be performed, my Faithful spend a Faith token, causing a single engaged unit to suffer 3 automatic hits for each rank of the Faithful have previously lost, managing to take out 2 of the Sworn Brothers before they can swing. The attack kills 4 R'hllor Faithful, and I pass my panic test. Losing a rank and passing the test deal 2 auto wounds back to the Sworn Brothers, so both parties suffer 4 damage. I play Baratheon Justice after the enemy unit completes an attack to apply a panicked and vulnerable token to the Sworn Brothers. I choose to activate Melisandre next and opt out of using her ability due to the self-harm it causes. I claim the Coin Zone and heal 3 wounds to my damaged R'hllor Faithful. However, my opponent uses one of Varys' tokens to heal 2 wounds to her Sworn Brothers. The Night's Watch player charges a unit of Shadow Tower Spearmen into the same unit of Faithful, performing a melee attack after successfully making contact. She deals 5 wounds to the Faithful, reducing them to a single model, but again the Stag Knight Noble, combined with a successful panic test, deals 2 wounds back to the Spearmen. Stannis and the Queen's men charge into the flank of Jor's sworn brothers. I play Ours as the Fury before rolling my attack dice, choosing to gain the Vicious keyword, which reduces enemy morale statistics by -2 for the purposes of panic test. My opponent uses a Weaken token against me, forcing me to reroll my successful hits. I cause 3 wounds from the attack and 2 more from a failed panic test. With the center combats resolved, both sides return to maneuvering their units on their right flank of the field. On the left flank, my champions of the Stag advance and attempt to charge the flank of the Shadow Tower Spearmen. A charge roll of 1 sees the charge fail, although I pass the resulting panic test. R'hllor Faithful make a successful charge against Shadow Tower Spearmen on the right flank. However, the Spearmen use their orders set for charge to preemptively attack my Faithful before they can strike. Orders are abilities that can be used once per turn and have specific triggers that allow you to use them. In this case, set for charge order can be used when an enemy unit successfully charges you. The attack takes out a full rank of Faithful, but 2 Spearmen fall in the return due to the effects of the Stag Knight Noble. The Faithful continued on to resolve their attack against the Spearmen, using a Faith token to gain Precision and Vicious keywords. Precision makes any hit rolls of 6 count as automatic wounds. 5 Spearmen are taken out between damage and a failed panic test. The Builder Crossbowmen fire into the flank of the R'hllor Faithful, killing another 4. They pass their panic test yet again and deal 2 wounds back to the Spearmen. You can probably see how good the Faithful are with the Stag Knight Noble at this point. My first action for turn 3 is to claim the coin using Tycho, and using his once per game ability. Between Tycho's ability and the zone's effect, I heal 8 wounds between 2 units of R'hllor Faithful. My opponent uses another of Varys' tokens to heal 2 wounds to a unit of Sworn Brothers. The Night's Watch claim the attack zone with Varys, allowing a unit of Sworn Brothers to perform a free attack action, resulting in 4 Queen's men being killed. Next, I activate Melisandre and claim the Missive. Using her ability, I suffer 2 wounds and a panic test to force the Shadow Tower Spearmen to take a panic test at -2 to their morale and +2 wounds on failure. The test is failed, but I use a panic token to make my opponent re-roll the D3, turning the 1 wound into 3. 5 Spearmen are killed total. The Spearmen attack the flank of the R'hllor Faithful next, suffering 2 wounds from a Faith token dealing auto hits to them before they attack. Still, the Spearmen outright kill the remaining unit of Faithful, but the effects of losing ranks from the Stag Noble takes the Spearmen out as well. As the Faithful are removed, I use their final Faith token to allow another friendly R'hllor unit nearby to perform a free attack action, choosing the Queen's Men. I play Ours as the Fury before resolving the Queen's Men attack, choosing +1 to hit and Vicious since I control the Missive Zone. The attack takes down 3 Sworn Brothers, although we did make a mistake here and forgot to heal a Sworn Brother due to the unit passing a panic test. This makes a small difference, but would have just prolonged the inevitable at this point. Following up on the free attack, the Queensmen activate and attack again, killing off the Sworn Brothers and surging forth without much left in front of them. Because we forgot to heal that Sworn Brother from the previous attack, this attack would not have been enough to take them out, and it's likely the Sworn Brothers would have passed their panic test and remained in play with 2 men after healing another. However, it is very unlikely they would have gone on to kill the Queensmen and would have been taken out the following turn. The Watch Marshal suicide charges into the flank of the Queensmen, taking out a single man. R'hllor Faithful attack the remaining Shadow Tower Spearmen, killing 2, but the unit passes a panic test and remains in play with a single model. The Spearmen attempt to attack the R'hllor Faithful back, but a Faith token deals the Spearmen 3 auto hits and kills the remaining man before the attack can be made. The Builder Crossbowmen savage the R'hllor Faithful with a volley of bolts as they run down the Spearmen. 6 Faithful are killed total. The champions of the Stag finally make their presence known and rear charge the Watch Marshal, easily destroying the unit. Had the Sworn Brothers remained in play, this charge probably would have been for them and would have taken them out all the same. Aemon claims the zone, forcing my fresh unit of R'hllor Lightbringers to take a panic test at -1. They fail and suffer 3 wounds. With so little left, we skip right to the final turn, as Varys claims the attack zone and the crossbows loose another volley, killing the R'hllor Faithful. I activate Melisandre next and restore the Lightbringers to full strength. The crossbows activate for a final time, taking out 2 Lightbringers. We decide to call the game here since my opponent simply doesn't have enough to gain any sort of victory. As always, if you made it this far, I thank you for your time and I hope you enjoyed the video. We didn't initially plan this to be a learn-to-play game, but my Baratheons took out the Night's Watch so fast the game was pretty much over at the end of turn 3, and the video would have been pretty short. The rules breakdown I provided was pretty shallow and mainly highlighted the most common aspects of gameplay, but hopefully it served to help understand the events of the battle and provide some interest in the game system as a whole. There's a wide variety of factions to play as. Almost all the major houses involved in the War of 5 Kings are covered, including the Night's Watch and the Free Folk. Again, thanks for your time and make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed the video. If you feel like going the extra mile, consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll be updating the subscription tiers soon, and we'll be adding Discord access to Patreon subs so you can hang out and chat while I work on models. Next battle report will either be our first featured game of Star Wars Armada, another A Song of Ice and Fire game, or a follow-up to our last bolt action game. Either way, I'll have more for you all soon. Till next time.